fatigue, extreme tiredness resulting from mental or physical exertion or illness. It can happen with the overstimulation of anything, repeatedly performing the same tasks, game after game, no end in sight. Come here, do this, go there, do that, collect these collectibles which have no meaning whatsoever. No beneficial story behind them, just get them. We told you to, so you will. It's time consuming, tiring, and it's brain numbing. There's a stark difference between that and making the world so immersive that it overcomes the player so much to the point that they want to explore every single inch of the map. But no, most go with the Ubisoft formula. Icons scattered across the map, placed there for no reason other than another checkbox to tick in an open world checklist. The Horizon, Far Cry and Assassin's Creed series are prime examples of this phenomenon. We've become so saturated with open world games in this market that it's actually become a pointless endeavor to make open world games unless you can actually incentivize me to explore it. While that should be a given, for many years game developers have solely prided themselves with making the largest open world possible. That may have been interesting for the first several times, but it gets old fast. Get me to want to explore it. Not by icons on the map telling me what I can get for going to a location. I don't need to know that going north will land me an armor upgrade, because after a while it will just feel like I'm going through the motions, and at that point it will just turn into a podcast game for me. A reasonably fun game with minimal immersion so I can remove myself enough from the experience and story to mute it and put on a podcast I'd rather listen to instead of that. And hey, I'm not knocking podcast games. There's many out there I like. Online shooters, FIFA, driving games. But one factor these games have in common: the story is not what drives me to continue. Whereas with a larger open world, that's what I need. A story. Something to compel me enough to explore and get distracted. For example, spoiler warning for Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan was initially robbing and killing to make money for the gang. But then, later on after his tuberculosis diagnosis, he underwent a redemption arc and the way he treats other people changed. It actually incentivized you, yourself, to go and help as many people as you encounter in the world. I loved helping Charlotte the Widow. Learning her story was great, but it added layers to the main story the game was telling. If I hadn't done it, not much would have changed. However, experiencing that reinforced the arc the character was going on. Similarly, but on a different end of the spectrum, a game like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. As Geralt, you're searching for Ciri, your daughter, but you know she's well capable of looking after herself for the moment if you get sidetracked. So with the world being so lore heavy and captivating, it incentivizes you to explore it. If your daughter was a feeble child, there's no actual reason to include an open world in the game, because role-playing as Geralt, the character, there's no incentive to explore it. Your priority is to get your child to safety first and foremost. Another aspect that developers need to look hard into when developing the game is the traversal. Make sure it's fun, not tedious. Marvel Spider-Man 2, for example. Immaculate traversal. Swinging and gliding from one end of New York to the other, you never tire from it. To be honest, despite having already platinumed it and not really intending to replay it in its entirety, sometimes I still boot it up solely to swing about for a bit. It's relaxing. The reason that this is crucial is that it stops you from using fast travel. If you end up using fast travel frequently, it gives the sense that either you don't enjoy exploring the world or the traversal's whack. Now, an interesting way that a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Days Gone makes traversal fun, excluding the actual method of travel itself, is the bond you have with the method of travel. These games get you attached to your form of transport in that way. Personally, taming your own steed in Red Dead Redemption 2, then cleaning her, feeding her and patting her creates a relationship that makes you love your method of transport, incentivizing you to traverse using it more often. Days Gone managed this with a motorbike, which is interesting in a different manner, because it's not live like a horse. You don't care for it in the same way because it's not an animal you need to look after. But constantly having to refuel it and having to have scrap always at hand ready to repair the engine if it gets overly damaged makes you appreciate and care for it as a mode of transport more. One of the most confused games of modern time in my opinion is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The game has one of the largest open worlds I've ever seen, yet somehow they feel the need to force you to explore it. A reason for exploring is including worthwhile side content in every nook and cranny of the world, but Valhalla has side missions baked into the main story. This to me is an absurd notion and what pushed me over the tipping point when it comes to this genre of games. They forced you to go through the majority of 80 hours doing side missions with characters you don't really care about, getting introduced to new ones without any real movement in the main questline, just so you can progress a minuscule amount every 20 hours or so. And somehow I actually brought myself to finish it. Not without regret though. This travesty could have been avoided had the game been a quarter of its actual length. Developers making open world games, whether forced to or not by their publishers, suck. If there's no in-game reason for it. They must think that the easiest and most cost-effective way of making someone like their game is increasing the size of their open world. That way, the player is surely more likely to find something they'll like. Although, when the majority of the game is clearly exposing repeated mission structures, repeated encounters, repetitive design in general, and fetch quests, it becomes tedious and nobody wants that. I want shorter games. We all have a breaking point and I've reached it when it comes to these kinds of experiences. There are games with substance that are long, so it's clear that the length is not the issue. It's the unnecessary padding placed in to extend the length by unnecessary proportions. Keep it shorter. Some of the greatest games of all time are short. Thanks so much for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, comment your thoughts and subscribe for more retrospectives and video essays like this. See ya!